Leveling in New World is going to get quicker and better, and this is going to be very important when it comes to Fresh. Before we crack on, special thanks to my YouTube members. I really appreciate you guys, and if you want to support the channel, that is the best way to do so. So let's talk about the main thing that's changing. Some of you there were probably thinking I was going to jump into the PTR and talk about the leveling experience. No, I'm showing you some graphs. I'm in my shirt from work, so we have to talk about works-like stuff and graphs. Anyway, these are two important graphs that I pulled off from New World database, and basically on there they have a table for the current leveling XP per character and what it's going to be like on the PTR. Now that's obviously subject to change, so just keep that in mind, but it looks like leveling is getting significantly easier. So what this top graph here shows you is this shows you the XP required per level. The blue one is what it currently is, and the red one is what it is on the PTR. So effectively you can see actually before level 20 a lot of it's pretty much the same. Okay, it's only really when you get significantly to about 45 where it really starts splitting, and you can see the last level takes about 100,000 XP on the current, and it's actually 40,000 P on the new, and it's actually 40,000 XP on the new one. Now there's a little bit of a weirdness there in that sometimes it goes down at certain levels. I don't know if they'll straighten that up, but it is what it is. And what that equates to is this leveling curve. So this is the actual total cumulative XP required per level, if that makes sense. So it's not the XP per level, but if you were at level 40 then you would have required 664,000 XP currently, whereas on the new one you will only need 436,000 XP. And you can see the same thing again, like level 20 to about level 22, 23, something like that. It's pretty much the same, which probably explains the difference when we think about the new starting leveling experience. That goes up to 25, so maybe they're happy with the speed of that and they don't want to tinker with it too much, which I think is probably a good decision. I don't think it necessarily feels slow. But we can see by the end of it, the total XP difference is actually quite massive. So on the current version, you need 2,171,000, right? Whereas on the PTR, it seems that you actually need 1,165,000, pretty much about half. So the total XP and the total time it's going to take to level is getting nerfed by about 50%. That's huge when it comes to Fresh. Now we're pretty sure Fresh is coming because it was very strongly hinted at by one of the developers on the New World forums. Fresh is going to happen, and this is going to have a massive impact for everybody who's interested in Fresh. And there's a real question, depending where you are on this curve, if you're anywhere between like level 30 and 40, it might actually be worth just waiting for Brimstone Sands and Fresh. Let's do a little bit of maths, right? Let's say you're at level 40, because that's the example we used before. Yes, you will have got 600,000 XP on the current version, but you then still need about 1.5 million to get to max level. 1.5 million XP would already take you to 60, and you'd get to experience Fresh. So even at like level 40, it still might be worth waiting for Fresh, depending on how much pressure you think leveling actually is. Obviously it doesn't take into consideration your like crafting professions and all that kind of stuff, but there's a real question there about if you're a returning player and you're not max level, maybe you're less than 40, might be worth waiting. And if you're somebody who's considering Fresh but you're like, oh actually it takes so long to level, well keep in mind it's actually going to be a lot quicker. And one reason they're probably doing this is because the experience post level 30 has generally not been that great. There's not that much has changed. The quests are a little bit better now, sure, and the questing experience with the UI is all a lot better. I do think that's the case, but it still sort of probably like drags a little bit, and it feels like that's the area they're sort of making a lot easier. Now they've left the level 1 to 25 sort of mostly untouched, and that's because of that new starting experience. I also personally felt that that's not really where the time sink is. You get those initial levels quite quickly anyway. They don't really need to tinker with that. Now there have been some wider XP changes from when the game launched. For example, quests now give a lot more XP. I think at one point they may have actually been doubled, and I think I saw that Damone, for example, he was trying to test this on the PTR, and he was saying that, you know, the town boards are over and questing is where it's at, and I'm not necessarily sure that's related to the PTR. Maybe they have actually tweaked the numbers, I'm not 100% sure, but they've already tweaked the fact that quests are quite good and town boards were never changed. That combined with these like sort of imply questing is probably a decent way of doing it now, and it will be a lot less painful. So this to me should help maybe a few people. If you're going to start Fresh, well just know that your grind isn't going to be as long. Or if you're an existing player and you were reluctant to try Fresh because you're like, oh it's a big effort to get from like 1 to 60, well just know that it's actually way less of an effort now. It's literally cut in half pretty much. Now this is all reliant on the fact that what I've seen from New World database being accurate, which obviously I'm just assuming is correct. This is basically what it is currently on the live version, and this is what it's going to be like on the BTR, this figure here is the total XP, right? So this is where I'm getting it from. That's my source. I have no real reason to disbelieve that. So yeah, overall, I think leveling is going to be really interesting on these fresh servers, and just in general for people coming to the game in the future. Maybe if somebody comes even way after fresh has happened, they now won't be spending that long leveling. It's a really good sort of like catch-up mechanic, as well as being super interesting for fresh. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I do hope you have a most beautiful day. Like and subscribe. Goodbye.